you don't necessarily have to change your business, because people get scared when I talk about this. Is that like, I have to change? No, you don't have to change your business. You have to change your messaging, change the way you're breaking down your marketing. What you need to ask yourself, if this is not happening in my business, why is it not happening? What that probably means is that you may have values on paper, but maybe you're not living them. Business owners, they're not managing to spread it across the company.
Stephanie, thank you very much for joining us on the Grow Up podcast. It's been a while since we last spoke, so it's good to finally have you here and we get to kind of talk about you and who you are. But I will pass the mic over to you to introduce yourself, kind of give us a bit of a breakdown of who you are, where you come from, and what your passion is.
Excellent. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. And yes, well, where do I start from? How long ago? Gosh. Well, as you know, I'm a CMO, so Chief Marketing Officer at 9H Digital at the moment. I have been in the past an entrepreneur. I've had a number of businesses, and I started off actually in the industry as a programmer. So, programmer, web developer, web designer. So in those days, you were also an animator because it was the days of Flash design. So
Okay.
Giving away my age there. But so it was quite a natural evolution for me to sort of, move into marketing, because obviously then social media happened and it very much changed the world, especially the world of marketing. And sort of the journey took me to, create an agency with my husband and my business partner. He was not my husband then, actually, okay. But yeah, we got married soon after.
How did that work? Business partner and a husband. What were the challenges there?
It's a difficult balance. It's a difficult balance. It's not easy. You always think you're going to be the exception because, people do warn you. Yeah. No, I don't think it was as bad as you hear, but obviously there were some differences in the sense of, direction and management. So sort of we didn't stay in the company after, but we ran for quite a while, and it was a very good run. And it was a very good agency, actually. We had some amazing talent. So, a very good learning curve. Obviously, I was pretty young when we started the business. So it's one of those things where it's a big learning curve.
Mm-hmm. So for our viewers, because this whole podcast started because of that, right? Because of the lack of local content at least, of kind of what are the do's and don'ts of when starting a business, especially in Malta. For now, so if you had to go back in time, right, or if you have to start another business, what are the things that you have learned not to do, and what are the things that you have learned that you would do?
In terms of content?
In terms of just in general, like entrepreneurship.
Okay, well, actually, I think probably the biggest lesson is that I went into business with no clear idea of what my part in the business would be, what my contribution to the business would be, how I would grow in the business. So it was like very, we're excited, let's do this, let's make it happen. A lot of action, but maybe not enough experience and not enough strategy from the business building point of view. So I would say that next time, and in fact, this is sort of what I kind of did after, but, we'll probably get into that a bit later. I would say go the first leg alone. So, like the first part of your business journey, go alone. In fact, I've had a lot of clients who have been through the same issue where they start a business with a partner and then soon after they break up because they find out that they wanted to go in different directions. Mm-hmm. So I would say that if you're starting out, start alone and start building alone until you really know what your direction is and where your passion is and where you really want to go. Because, for instance, like, maybe your business partner wants to really grow the business and you don't. Maybe they want to go, in one sector of the industry, and that's really not where your passion is. You don't want to be doing that every day. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to really find your feet and know what you want first, and then find a partner that shares that. Ideally, shares your vision, but has the skills you don't, because it's.
So I'm reading a book right now about building like your own consultancy business, because I'm obviously that's what I do. So it's kind of just helpful because I'm at the early stages of it as well. Just really helpful to pick up on that, and it does say that as well. Like start alone and then onboard people with likely mindset, I guess, or direction. But also there might be a situation where you might need people to help, and the guy says, like the writer says, the author, I don't know, the writer says, onboard them as a consultant, not a business partner. So just get what you need in terms of information and then keep going in your own direction. So
that's right. And you can also have collaborations. You know, you can work with other businesses or work with other partners without being sort of in bed with them. Sort of, you know, you can still keep your autonomy, but work on projects together. And I find that a lot of companies do this as well. Larger companies, where maybe they're thinking of creating like a company together, or maybe, for instance, let's say I once had a couple of clients. They were an accountancy firm and a law firm, and they were thinking of creating this other company that services the gaming industry. And you have to run a few experiments first. You have to kind of run it as a project. You have to see how the people are going to collaborate, how it's going to work, because you don't want to just jump into it, do it all officially, and then you realize that
And we're still in the process of officializing the podcast, and we're on over 15 episodes in now. Until but it does. You just need time to kind of gel the team together, and we've had people join the podcast, and as not as guests, but as people working on it, and then leaving because of time restraints or commitment or passion. But yeah, so it's been a journey so far. We're only 9 months in, so I absolutely stand for what you're saying. It makes sense. Not that our podcast is a business, by no means.
Yes, it's an easy lesson to learn in retrospect.
It is and it isn't. But I mean, that's what, like you said, right? It's I think entrepreneurship is just about the resilience to failure that you have as a person. You just need to keep going.
That's right. Exactly. It's about persistence and being hard-headed.
Yeah,
really,
just being,
and
that's it.
It's true. And in fact, I think that, out of all the things I've done, I think that's my biggest talent. Just resilience. Being hard-headed and persistent. Stubborn. You just, being stubborn. That's right. A lot of, especially your parents, don't usually say it in a very positive way. But in the long run, I think that's what really makes a difference. It's.
And it's interesting you mentioned parents, because you're not the first guest. You're probably the third or the fourth that have said that their biggest barriers when they were going into self-employment or going into business was their parents telling them, no, it's really, really risky. Like, don't do it. And I've had the same as well. Although now they are starting to warm up to it because they've seen kind of the grind and the hustle and the day-to-day and finally getting some results, right. But it's hard at the start, and you just need to keep going.
Well, I can't say I had that problem.
No?
Because my mom ran a family business.
Okay.
She inherited the family business soon after having twins.
Wow.
I'm a twin.
So that's where the resilience comes from then?
Yes, maybe, yes. and then she even set up her own business later.
Okay.
So there wasn't this resistance. There was actually exposure to business. Of course, this is something actually we talk about quite a lot, but obviously, of course, businesses in the 80s and 90s had a very different ride, in the sense that there wasn't so much competition, marketing wasn't such a big thing. But still, looking at someone like, your own parents being able to, my mom became a beautician. She first used to manage a handbag factory.
Wow.
And then sort of when the market opened, that became unfeasible to keep doing them here. So she decided to train up as a beautician. She had previously, when she was young, qualified as a nurse. So she had always had an interest. And she, she went abroad and she got qualified, and she was in the news and all that because it was like a big deal. She opened her own shop. And so sort of I always admired that. It's a nice thing. So sort of you don't realize that maybe you don't sit there thinking, oh, it's great what she did, but it kind of normalizes the fact that you just kind of come up with an idea and you follow it and you make it happen.
That's true.
And so I think the fact that's normalized, that definitely helps. And, for me, I never thought of myself really as an entrepreneur or a business person or whatever. I just like to follow what I'm interested in. And, I've naturally moved from one thing to the other. I've been employed, I've been a business partner where you're not exactly your own boss either, because, the client's the boss and your business partners are, making decisions with you. And I've run my own business online where it was just me and, my assistants and outsourcing. And now I am employed at 9H Digital and, I'm loving it. And so it's a matter of really finding what's attracting your next passion, your next phase. I've never thought of myself, I'll always be, I think I'll always be entrepreneurial, I'll always be self-employed. I think a lot of people think that this thing of going self-employed is all about freedom and it's all about doing what you want. But for me, freedom is finding the place I want to be.
Yeah. Being happy, right?
I have always felt free whether I've been employed, whether I've had 2 jobs, whether I've had, whether I've been completely my own boss. It's just a matter of following where you want to be next, I think.
Interesting. That's a very interesting way of putting it, because you tend to have a very polarizing view. Not you, as in people tend to have a very polarizing view on whether employment or self-employment is the best thing. And a lot of self-employed people are like, no, I would never go into employment because I love the freedom of it, although I tend to work more hours now that I'm self-employed, to be fair. But at least kind of enjoy what you're doing, so the more hours don't really feel like extra hours. But no, it's interesting you put it like just follow whatever you enjoy and what you want to do.
That's right. And that's incidentally, that's what I was saying to Bjorn. I was like, I did a lot of hours yesterday because, there were these things I needed to finish. It doesn't feel like
work. It's just something
because if it's something you're enjoying, it's what you want to do, then it's fine, because obviously you put, depending on the kind of person you are, you put, some of us maybe are more naturally inclined to really dive into obsessions, I suppose, and really get obsessed with what we want to do. And maybe that is the entrepreneurial streak. It doesn't matter whether you're employed or not. It's just, when you do something, you just do it to a certain level, to a certain fullness, because it's just who you are.
Yeah. If you like something, like I go into these obsessive rabbit holes if I really enjoy a topic or really want a project, like want to see through a project or an event.
Exactly.
Events used to really just I had an epiphany now, because events used to really get me into that state of flow and obsession. When I used to plan digital conferences for HSBC, it was very painstaking work, but it was like something I really enjoyed, because you had to kind of decide what the theme is going to be, then put the right people in the right seats, get the seats as in the right breakout rooms because it's digital, get the right speakers, decide how the speakers are going to get positioned, and it was a 3-day conference. It wasn't just 4 hours and that's it.
That's right.
There was kind of this cadence of where do we start, where do we finish, and I used to get in that state of flow. So finding that state of flow is important. I agree with you 100%.
Yes, and that's exactly it. The state of flow. I think when you find it, you kind of get addicted to it.
Oh yeah.
And I think I found it when I started programming.
Okay.
Because I used to mostly program in the evenings or at night. I used to live in Portugal in those days, so we didn't sleep a lot.
Yeah. Not now. I need my 8 hours.
No, we didn't sleep a lot because it was noisy.
Yeah.
And yes, when you're programming, I mean, I was one of these programmers who just can't go to bed if they have a bug. It's like, because I'd go to bed and I'd keep thinking about it. So I'd always have to, make sure, get to a stage where there are no bugs and I'm okay. I'm at this late stage. I can go to bed now. I'll continue tomorrow. But that state of flow, like we said, is something you can really get addicted to. And I found it, I think, first with programming and eventually with copywriting. I have taught quite a lot of copywriting everything from blogging to, email sequences, and, because I'm quite geeky about funnels these days. And I'm also writing a book, actually, which I hope to finish soon. Because
if you finish it before this episode releases, let us know.
It's been halfway for quite a while.
We'll plug it in the description.
There's this, these days I say I would go into flow, especially when I'm writing. But that's, you get that, it's like time warps.
Yeah. You get where's the last 2-3 hours gone?
That's right. I sometimes find it warps the other way around. Where it's like, I feel like I've been working for like hours and because I got so much done, and it's like been an hour. And I'm like, wow, I got so much done.
I feel like I get the most done. For example, let's say I finish a call at like 1:30, right? And I've got another call at 2:00. So I'm like, okay, I've got half an hour. Let me just get this one thing I've been trying to get out of my head and get it done. And it could be like drafting a proposal or building the last, like just closing off a presentation or something like that. And I start working on it. And all of a sudden it's like 2:00 because I'm just enjoying it so much. So that I've never felt the other way around. I've never felt like I've got so much done in this 1 hour. I think it's always like, I've run out of time, because then I start kind of just getting into more detail and trying to finish it off and all that. So
perhaps that's just a copywriting thing.
Could be.
Because sometimes it really flows and things are fast and you just put it on paper really quick. And there are other times where, it takes research and it takes time. So you can really feel the difference.
Do you still do copywriting now? Or do you like...
I still do. I still write blogs. I write sales pages. I write email sequences. So yes.
So quick question on that, right? Has ChatGPT had any impact?
I actually ran quite a lot of experiments in the last year. I started off when ChatGPT first came out, and I'm mildly obsessed with SEO. So I ran quite a lot of experiments with tools, writing tools, some of the best writing tools, not just ChatGPT, but also writing tools that are specifically for bloggers, that claim to SEO the content as well. And I did an experiment where, I was writing the content, publishing it, and sort of what happened is that it does affect your SEO badly, but it does affect your SEO badly for a specific reason. So it doesn't mean that AI content is bad for SEO or is bad for your site. You can use it, but what happens is it's the whole principle. So if you understand how Google works, it's actually completely natural. In the beginning, people were scared because Google was saying this is going to be spam and we're not going to accept AI content. As AI content improved, Google kind of changed their tune and they were like, okay, it doesn't matter if it's human or not, but it's got to be high quality. It's got to follow the EAT quality metrics. So basically what happens is that if you write solely with these tools and you don't improve much, okay, you can maybe optimize a little bit more with SEO. If you know SEO, you're not really going to get great results, because what Google wants is not just good quality content, but also content that is not like all the content out there. Because why should they index yet another site that is saying the same thing? Why should they index your article when it says exactly the same thing? That all the articles that they've indexed for that particular keyword in the first page are already saying the same thing. And that's exactly what ChatGPT and a lot of these AI tools do. They get the articles that are ranking for that particular topic, and they're going to regurgitate the information.
Because that's where their data's coming from.
That's where their data's coming from. So it can very effectively be used for research. It can be very effectively be used to take a look at the different opinions. So let's say you're writing an article about, I don't know, marketing, and you don't, and you're talking about marketing something specific, let's say marketing a car. You want to use ChatGPT to challenge your perspective, because what that does is it helps you make stronger arguments. You also want to research in the sense of you want to, especially if you have, the professional, the membership for ChatGPT-4, it is directly connected to the internet right now. So you can use it to research things that might take you a long time. So if you're looking for statistics, I would very, very easily go to ChatGPT and say, I need these statistics. On which sites can I find them? Or where can I find reliable information about this particular brand, for instance? And you can use it to, even to get quotes and, who are people like, or for instance, a very interesting trick is, for instance, if your target audience are, I don't know, people who like Formula One, you'd say, okay, so what quotes would these kind of people like about my particular topic? Or what people do they follow? So you're always finding ways of really giving people that you're writing for exactly what they want.
You can gauge sentiment you can ask ChatGPT to gauge sentiment based on certain quotes. Never heard that.
So really cool. They will actually, it's not sentiment. In reality, what they're doing is that they're looking at the sites and they're looking at what people wrote about these things, and they're just getting information from there. But yes, it's a very good tool, especially I would say to plan your writing more than to actually write it. But it's getting better and better at writing. A great way of doing it, and you've got a podcast, so you're kind of halfway there. A great way of doing it is there are tools out there, and maybe we can share a few as well. Is you can get, say, a podcast or a video, and that you have recorded yourself. So, for instance, if you do webinars, if you do a podcast, you can even just talk into your phone if you're not a writer and you don't like to write. But the good thing is that once you have a transcript, then you can very easily get the transcript and get an AI tool that writes well, and ChatGPT with ChatGPT-4 with some plugins can write quite decently. You can teach it to actually write in your voice. And because it's starting from a transcript, it's going to write your own ideas. And then on top of that, you can also ask it to add information that it's crowdsourcing, kind of from the internet. And why is that good? Because you have the originality, you have the value, you have your own message coming through, you have your own tone of voice. You also have the kind of basics of the first few articles that Google has already ranked, that they want kind of in your article. It's always a compromise. You want to say what everyone's saying, but you also want to put your own twist on it. So doing it from your own stuff is actually the best thing you can do. So if you're already producing other content, it's just perfect, because it's just become so quick these days.
Like how you said, sorry, like in terms of when creating content is like saying, you want to include what everyone else is saying, but also have your own twist on it. And that just really encapsulates content planning in general.
Pretty much, yes.
Which I've been trying to start doing now. I'm sticking to like posting every day on LinkedIn right now. And trying to post something that's actually helpful, not just, regurgitate anything. And I've not been using ChatGPT to write it. I'll use like ChatGPT to give me ideas on what to write, and then I'll write it myself, because otherwise it's not me. Like I want me to come across, how I communicate, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor and all that stuff, But yes, that is absolutely like encapsulates content creation, which is like I want to convey the information correctly, but I also want to put some Dan on that, like make sure that people know it's coming from me and it's giving me that tone,
And AI is great in the sense that it's helping us do things faster. A lot of people are afraid of AI. They're like, oh, am I going to end up jobless? And in reality, what it's done, it's enhanced every tool that we use. Basically, we should not call it AI. We should call it not artificial intelligence, but augmented intelligence. Because what it's doing, it's augmented our intelligence as human beings. It's not artificial. Obviously, robots and fighting machines and war machines is a completely different kind of AI. We're talking about, ChatGPT. We're talking about, we're talking AI that, that we're using every day. That is in all our software. In reality, it was already there. It's just become smarter. So every tool that we use has AI in it these days.
And it's only as powerful as the person putting the prompts in it as well, right? It's like...
Yes. Now, interestingly enough, one of the first things I did actually when AI came out, so I actually did a prompt engineering course. I would say that by now, AI has gotten so smart that you don't really need that much.
Okay.
You don't really need to know prompt engineering that much. It does help to kind of know how it works, but I think it's very easy to pass on to someone else in a few words these days, because you don't have to be so specific. ChatGPT-4 is very smart. They're going to keep getting smarter. So, like in the beginning, you used to have to literally almost role play with ChatGPT to get it to finally smarten up and, sort of, especially if you're talking about a niche or something of the sort. These days, it's very easy to prompt. And especially if you have your own content already, it makes things really easy. For instance, I was talking to one of my colleagues and creating systems in a company for your marketing team. So one of the things I've been doing is creating a process, for instance, for when you're launching an event or when you're launching a webinar. And one of the pieces in it is, of course, the email sequences. So how do you get people to turn up? There are, maybe 9 emails over 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on your tolerance for unsubscribers. But we all know the more emails you send, the more people turn up. But obviously, every email has to hit a particular code. You have to have a specific reason for every particular email. So what you can do, though, is that once you've got these sequences and they have been written with the right sort of persuasion points in them, then what I'm doing is basically I would write the prompt, which has all the details of the next event, and then you just run your email sequence through it, and it rewrites it for the next event in your own tone of voice.
Wow.
With the same persuasion points. But if you didn't have the knowledge to create the first email sequence, obviously ChatGPT wouldn't be able to create the other sequences for you.
Interesting.
So that's why I'm saying it's like augmented intelligence, because you cannot replace, 20 years of experience and all these little nuances that you learn.
Yeah.
I think no matter how good artificial intelligence gets, no matter how smart robots get, it's going to be very difficult for a non-human to understand all these nuances about psychology that we naturally pick up and sometimes internalize without even knowing, because there isn't really a process for it. It's like we internalize it, we know that it works, and it kind of comes out in our work. So there will, like you said, there will always be the human element. I think it's inevitable.
I think I agree on that. I am not scared of AI at all. I might be, we might be eating our words in 50 years' time when our new overlords,
maybe we might
the robots
be
are taking over.
Skynet begins to learn at a geometric rate. It becomes self-aware at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Time, August 29th.
Yes, we might be eating our words, but admittedly, for me, it's very exciting. I've always loved technology. I like change. I like new things. I love Ghost in the Shell. It's like it's been like one of my favorites. Now, I mean, I've always been into sort of.
There is a film about it as well, right? Ghost in the Shell. There is a movie.
But there's the original classic, there's the TV series, and then there's the recent film which they made with real people in Europe.
That's with Scarlett Johansson, right?
Yes, that's the film. But the classic is actually hand-drawn.
Okay. Wow, okay.
And then the digitized TV series.
Wasn't that an anime, Ghost in the Shell?
Of course, right? Yes. The origin's an anime. Yes, it's awesome. Haunting. It's brilliant. It's about a hacker that can hack into cyborg souls. You got to watch it 2 or 3 times because it's like so intense to understand the story. But you
used to watch it, right?
It was a very even like Matrix took a lot from it.
Yes, that's right. That's one thing I said when I was the Matrix. True.
What happened with the Matrix, man? That was such a good, they killed it with the last one, haven't they? Yeah. Well, to be fair, a lot of Matrix fans say that only Matrix like 1 and maybe 2 were good, and then the rest were just. We're going to talk about movies now, I think.
Yes. No, don't worry. That's right up my street. Let's talk about movies.
But like talking about hackers, like one good series was Mr. Robot. What happened with that? Did you watch Mr. Robot?
I did not.
That's really good. Yeah? It's a mixture of. Well, I can't tell you. It's about a hacker. I can't tell you anything else because it would really spoil the last episode. Because of the first season, and then I don't know what happened. It kind of just fizzled into nothing.
It would be like a thrillerish.
It's very, but it's very up that. Yeah, it's very psychological.
Okay,
like scary stuff. Yeah, I think.
Talking about like media and content and everything like that. I mean, historically, media has always kind of copied from its previous predecessors, right? Always copied from the ones that came before. We always take something and add on top.
Yeah.
Take that one, add something on top of it. So it's always kind of.
It's always been an augmentation process. You're right.
Yes, and it's always happened. You'd be amazed how far back it goes.
Yeah.
Like the story of the Sword and the Stone is actually taken from much older stories. Right. It can be, there are certain characters that are very typical that you find in all these old stories dating back to the oldest book, it's the Gilgamesh epic. Yeah, and it's just written in Sanskrit. It's one of the oldest things ever written, and the stories just keep coming through, and they keep coming through. If you look at say the history of even like in Italy, you had these traveling people who used to. The troubadours who used to sing stories. And then you had the puppet shows. The characters that these people spoke about are still the same original characters that you'd find, and they're the same ones you find in operas. They're the same ones you find in books today. Because human nature doesn't change. It's the environment. It's the tools that we use. Even in marketing, people say, "Oh, has marketing changed?" Well, the tools we use have changed, but human nature doesn't change, So it's even in sales, it's like it's always in reality. Once you know how people work, it's just a matter of adapting to the next tool to sort of do your job better. Yeah. That's all, really.
You talk about has marketing changed or is marketing changed? So here's a bit of a hot take. Could be a bit opinionated as well, but because of the nature of online and digital marketing, a lot of people think or feel that there's kind of a lot of oversaturation and competition in the digital marketing sphere. And I've recently finished a book called This is Marketing by Seth Godin, which I'm sure you know who he is or have read it. So he talks about it. He talks about like the best way to market your product is not having a great digital marketing funnel or whatever, all that. It's about building long-lasting relationships with your clients, being trustworthy, building that credibility, and having like real human conversations. And that's kind of where he kicks off the book. I don't think he discards digital marketing. Let's not say that that's what he's doing. But what's your stance on that? So is digital marketing oversaturated right now, especially in the business sphere?
I don't believe in oversaturation because let's say a lot of people say, "Oh, that market's saturated, don't touch it," or "There are too many businesses doing that, don't do it." But the truth is that if people are doing something, it means it works, generally. Okay. Unless you're counting your success in likes and follows. If you're counting the right data, then, which is basically how much money it's making you, then you should be fine. It's not about oversaturation. There are a lot of people doing it because that's where it's moved. But maybe we saw it a little bit less with traditional marketing because there were only so many billboards people could book. But there was a time where there were billboards everywhere. Everyone was booking billboards. I never understood why, because you can't measure your feedback too easily. I suppose it's possible, but not so easy. I always had a gripe with people who spent a lot of money on billboards. But it's about, in reality, if people are doing it, it's because it works. It's a tool. It's easily accessible. But there's a difference between doing it and doing it well. And one question I get asked a lot is, if it's so oversaturated, then how is it going to work for me? First of all, the first step is to, as much as possible, work with a professional that has a lot of experience. Because people who have seen the development of an industry know how to break through the noise. The second and easiest thing is do one thing and do it really, really, really well. So if you're going to do a podcast, do just that, and do it really, really, really well. Because in order to cut through the noise, you have to do one thing and do it really well. It doesn't mean you don't do anything else. But usually, most businesses, most people can only do something at an extraordinary level, at 10x the level everyone else is doing it. You can only do one thing. So whether that thing's going to be events for you, whether that thing is going to be ads, whether it's going to be a podcast, or it's going to be your weekly blog. That's because I used to write. It's kind of my lazy side, because you can do videos, they take a lot of work, which of course,
Yeah, well, not me.
Yes. But just picking that one thing, and it doesn't mean you don't do anything else. You're still going to do, your emails, you're going to do a little bit of organic, you're going to do a bit of everything, but you pick that one thing and you say, I'm going to do this so well that people can't ignore it. And that's how you cut through the noise. And also, I think, really knowing your target audience. Because yes, it's oversaturated, but your niche knows that you're right for them if you're speaking to them in the right way. It's something very simple. If you go to Google, something very simple. I don't know. Let's say you have a small yappy dog and you want to go to the groomer, but you don't know which groomer to pick. And you go to Google and you say, and you Google groomer or whatever, groomer for small dogs. And you get all these groomers, and there's one there that says groomer specialized in, I don't know, the delicate tiny feet of little dogs. Which one are you going to pick? You're going to pick the one that says that it's right for you, because this is actually what we're all looking for online. When we search for something and we're just looking for that, oh, this is right for me. And unless you speak very specifically to your target audience, you're not going to achieve that. People have to look at that and say, this is exactly for me. And of course, if you're an individual selling one service, that becomes much easier. If you're a company selling a number of services and a number of products, then it becomes a more complex affair. But that is ultimately that point that we're all trying to get to. That person coming across something online and going, this is for me. This is the thing I was looking for. And, this guy might have been a groomer that does all kinds of dogs, but just wraps the service in all these different messaging, So you don't necessarily have to change your business, because people get scared when I talk about this. Usually like, I have to change. No, you don't have to change your business. You have to change your messaging, and you change the way you're breaking down your marketing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing it well. Just package it in a different way. Wrap it in all this, the wrapping, so that people can say, oh, this is what I was looking for. Yeah.
So I can tell that you're very passionate about SEO. You did say that.
Yes, this is very much an SEO-driven thing, yes.
So I remember I did a digital marketing course in 2014, right? So I have that understanding of what SEO is, and kind of, I remember spiders and all, web spiders and all that stuff, and how it works and how it picks up. But I know its importance, but I just don't know where to start. So if somebody had their own business, and a listener of ours has their own business, and they've never really practiced SEO, what is the first thing or what's the easiest thing for them to do to get their website up a notch, and get on the first page, right? Or the second?
That's a very difficult question. No, because, it's like SEO people are very, very well known for saying it depends, because there are so many variables that you cannot really answer a question very directly unless you're actually looking at, okay, this is the site, this is the message, this is the target audience. It's a little bit difficult. I would like to backtrack from that and say, why SEO? Because if I had to speak to someone who is setting up their own business right now and is looking for the best marketing tool, especially if you're a solopreneur or you're a small business just starting up, which means you're going to be the business owner or the business partners doing the marketing, I would say, first of all, you need to know where your target audience is and who they are. And secondly, because you're going to be the one doing the marketing, you need to know where your skill set is and where your passion is. Because it's all about content creation these days. And of course, you need to know how to take the content from visibility to converting. That is something that, of course, needs to be learned. But the main thing is, what content are you going to create? Are you a writer? Do you write easily? Are you going to create a podcast? Is it voice? Is it going to be a video? What medium is it going to be? Is it social media? Which medium are you going to choose that you can be consistent at? Because it's not an uphill battle for you. Because I've actually, especially in my online business, I used to consult a lot of people who were setting up consultancy, coaching, service-based businesses, some SaaS businesses as well. And very often they would be in a difficult place because they're doing what they've been told is the way. And the truth is that every marketing strategy works if you do it properly. So it's important that you pick the one that is right for you, that you can do regularly. Because if it's an uphill struggle, you're going to do 3 months and then you're going to quit. If you don't like writing, if you absolutely hate it, and you're really pushing yourself to write, and you're not even sure if you're doing it right, you're going to quit after a few months. You're not going to keep doing it because everything that is content related takes time. And this is another thing that a lot of people get wrong, They think that they're going to post something and they're going to get leads right away. Again, like I said, you cannot change human nature. If a person takes a few months to warm up to the idea, if like one of the first things that happens when you start doing content is you get lurkers. People follow you. They don't engage. They don't leave comments, It takes time for them to actually get the courage and to start feeling like they know you. They've seen you around so long, like your posts, you're posting a lot. I see them on LinkedIn, In the beginning, you don't engage because you're kind of feeling like you're seeing posts from someone you don't really know. Yeah. After a while, this person starts looking, a bit more familiar. You almost start feeling, maybe after a couple of months, you start feeling like you almost know them because they're sharing so much about themselves. And then you start engaging with them. So it's human nature, but it comes in steps. I mean, I had written an article of one of the first articles I wrote on our business blog, I think in 2008. It was like, it's like dating. It's very much like dating. You can walk into a bar, go up to someone and say, hey, let's go to bed. It's maybe going to work 1% of the time. And they're probably going to have been there a while drinking already. And it's like your lucky day, But most of the time, that's not how human nature works. When you're going to go in, you have to get to know the person. There are all the different stages of understanding, and you don't just go and start selling to someone. And today we're less tolerant to people selling to us because we know we can Google everything. So you have to be even more careful. So it's a bit of a delicate balance, I think.
Yeah, I love how you package I'm learning so much. I love how you package the consistency is key on social media. So when we set out, when we started the podcast, we knew that it was going to take a while until it builds up, and we're still building up. Like, it's not like I don't think you ever reach a pinnacle in social media. You kind of you're always striving to do better and optimize each episode as you go along. But no one, so everyone says, it's important to keep doing it, don't stop, like don't look at the views, just keep doing it, just keep doing it, just keep doing it. No one says why. So you've now just put it plainly that people still see your content, but choose to then engage on it as time goes on, as it becomes more.
Yes, we take time to warm up to content.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's true. But and then now you've had me reflect on times that I used to like see like short form content come up on my feed, or I do enjoy going through YouTube. Like I learn a lot on YouTube. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts and like stuff, even like guides on how to write certain articles or stuff like that. And I do see a lot of stuff show up all the time on my recommended page that I ignore until I don't. And then once I do, then I go down the rabbit hole of like going through their channel or whatever, and then end up subscribing, right? So I see now what you mean. The way you articulated made a lot of sense for me. So thank you for that. I feel like I should pay you for this consultation. It's really good. I'd like to kind of just also talk to you about kind of what you're doing now. Obviously, you have such a vast experience. I think we probably need to break this down in the next 3 to 4 episodes. But you're the Chief Marketing and Growth Officer. So the growth aspect, obviously, I'm guessing it gels with the marketing aspect, right?
Yes, so that's actually one very interesting aspect of 9H. Actually, we have a growth team. It's not just me. And every person on the growth team is very experienced and, very talented in their own different ways. And basically, our goal is to drive not only growth for 9H, but also drive growth for the clients. So, share the expertise and make sure that sort of reverberates across everything that we do in the business. And that's, I think, a very interesting and very exciting place to be, because, if businesses don't grow, they die. We all know. If you're not growing, you're going to come across problems eventually. So I think growth strategies is actually the strategy everybody should be following. Obviously there's different business phases, and for different businesses it might look like a different scenario. There are businesses that maybe might be looking at stabilizing before they go for scaling, or maybe there are businesses who are already growing and want to grow faster. So, it comes in different phases. But growth is ultimately, it's lead generation, it's sales, it's CRM, it's also the quality of the service that you offer. It's actually building up the resilience and the quality of the business. And of course, making sure that you're reaching enough people to have enough clients coming into the business, and of course, keeping the ones you have as happy as possible.
Which is the challenge, right? So because I work with small, so I specialize in SMEs, right? So I work with small business, like startups and all that stuff. And the most common factor I see is that a lot of startups and small businesses are run on intuition rather than data driven, or that having the right functions, having the right structures. And in a way, you cannot have the right functions and structures in a startup, because that's what a startup is. It needs to be run on intuition, and that's why a startup is either successful or unsuccessful based on how good the CEO's intuition is.
That's right.
But you talked about something about, like, before you grow, should we stabilize or should we kind of go on? Now, I'm a big believer in the stabilizing before growing. I think having the right structure or the right foundation in place before growing will discount you a lot of pain in the long run.
Yes.
So I speak to a lot of businesses. I'm lucky enough to kind of have had time with a lot of different CEOs from SMEs, and you'd be surprised how many companies don't have an HR handbook, or don't have KPIs, or don't have any CRM software, or still have their customer support function with landlines and don't have any telephony tools or PBX tools. And then you'd find other companies that have access to great technology, but then their team is not trained or taught the right behavior on how to use these consistently.
That's right.
So then you're losing data from one end. So one of them has no data to work with, and the other one has the potential to work with that data, but the tools are not being used effectively, so the data is still not accurate.
That's right.
And data-driven decisions nowadays it's obvious that it works.
Yes.
You should have data. Right?
Yes, and I think it happens a lot where companies, we used to call it shiny object syndrome, where, as a new business owner, there are all these fantastic tools that you can use and, they're going to make your business so much better. But the truth is, you really need to research carefully and even maybe hire a consultant to find out which one is really the best for you in the long run, because changing tools can be a very expensive, especially not only in terms of the prices of the tools, that's usually money, the smallest thing, but also your employee time, your employee morale, their motivation. People don't like change. You cannot keep changing their systems for them. So it's important to have something that ideally gives you data visibility across the board, but is also maybe going to keep your processes simple enough to, onboard even the toughest of employees who need more support, because,
not everyone's adept at the same thing, right?
No, and, although maybe the entrepreneurial types like change a bit more, most people don't like change, and that's something we have to factor in. I think
implementing change is a talent for a leader, right? Like so I think to be able to implement change properly, you need to have it's a learned skill, because there is a certain rhythm you need to follow. Like you can't just I've seen both sides of this blade, right? Where you're either really excited about this new toolkit that's coming in, or new system, or new software, or new product, right? And you're so excited that you expect your team or your people to be as excited as you are. Rarely the case.
Rarely the case.
Very, very rarely the case. But then I've also experienced situations where the toolkit, regardless of what the leader felt like, was planned, like the change process, the implementation was planned very, very well in detail in terms of, so there's the right cadence, there's the right drip feeding of information, training, grace period, there's a time where both systems are still up, and then you slowly transition into it. And that feels really good, even though it's a bit more expensive probably to do something like that. What are your thoughts around that, around change? So, because you did say, like, no one likes change, right? But there is a way that you should implement change, I think, from my experience.
Yes, well, I must admit, from my point of view, it's a little bit difficult for me as someone who likes change and to maybe understand as well as you do, because I haven't maybe managed that side of things too much. But yes, there's definitely always a lot of resistance when you're trying to implement new things. And sometimes I think as a business owner, you can take it the wrong way and say, oh, it's because people don't want this. And it's because, it makes it maybe uselessly difficult is something that comes to mind, which I've heard before. But we also have to, again, look at human nature. It's the way it is. It's the way it's going to work. I love the idea that you mentioned, that you have the two systems running, because people maybe more than resisting using the new system are also feeling the loss of the safety that they had built with the processes that they knew. So they always have, I can maybe, if there's data that I need and I can't find it in my new system, it's still in my old system. It's safe. So that's definitely a good thing. I don't know how feasible that is in the obviously. It has to be transitional. Obviously,
yes.
I think it must be quite difficult, as in I'm thinking from the management perspective, to be running two systems, and I think it would be quite. It's a bit like.
I think it depends what system is, right? But you mentioned something that's really, like, when do people get most frustrated with new systems? It's when they have either an urgent situation that they need to deal with, and they're trying to figure out the new system at the same time.
That's it.
or there's an emergency. But I mean, well, it's the same thing, right? So, for example, if I have an origination tool, right, for a product, for personal loan, right? Because that's what we used to do. So you have an origination tool for personal loan. Yes. So my job is to take you as your client, and you take your details, understand what your incomings and outgoings are, kind of what are your current obligations, payment obligations, what's your lifestyle like, what's your income, etc. And I've got a new system, right? So that's fine. You're happy. You're a happy customer. You've got the time, so we're just doing it, and I don't mind because I'm figuring it out as I go along. But there's no pressure. But then we used to, like, let's say you get a customer, like, let's say I'm really in a rush, and you're going to lose the sale if you don't do it in a timely manner. You'd be like, oh shit, I'm just going to switch to the old system real quick, right? So then, so that's, I'm guessing that's kind of how I'm leveraging that, having both systems at the same time. So as the learning curve gets, easier and easier throughout, maybe let's say you do a 3-week grace period where you have both systems up. If you have an emergency situations where it would cause you to bond this negative emotion with the new system, you're back on the old one. Like, I'm just going to do it on the old one because this guy's in a rush, or this lady's in a rush and she wants stuff done now. But then otherwise you would just use the new system. So that's kind of what I meant by it. Okay. I don't think you would float from one or the other, but just if there is an urgent scenario where you need to use or where there is a scenario where I don't feel comfortable yet using the new system because I'm still learning, back to the old one, right? So that's kind of the way I thought about it.
Okay, that's interesting. I suppose when time is an issue, then.
So we met at a networking event at 9H, which was very interesting, where you spoke about the digital marketing funnel. I learned a lot from that as well, and I went back home and I researched it a bit more.
You did.
So thank you for that. It was very, very interesting. And I got to see the lovely offices where you guys work and all that. So what does 9H Digital do in terms of what is their service, if you had to kind of encapsulate it for our audience so people understand it?
Well, we're a digital agency, which means that we do web design, web development, UI, UX, which is interfacing of websites and apps. And we do, of course, all the design and the creative side as well. For those who maybe remember, not so long ago, 9H Digital used to be 2 separate companies called Anchovy and New. And New was the web design and app side of things, and they also do things like ERP and development software solutions. And then there's the creative side, which is the design, of course, branding. There's all kind of creative work. There's pay-per-click, SEO. There's so we are actually a fully fledged digital agency. The team is of 70 plus these days. We're in 3 countries.
Well done.
So our capability is very extensive, and we definitely sort of can offer that sort of special little something, which sort of goes over and above, in a sense that we have so much strategic knowledge internally, and also the team, the creative team, and also the development team. We have people who have been there for a very long time, and they have been in the industry. They're very experienced, and there's a lot of passion. And I think the quality of the work is really up there. Speaks for itself.
I mean, I can tell by the caliber of people that were at the event as well. Sorry, I moved away from the mic there, so my voice was bad. Sorry, but I can tell by the caliber of the people there that obviously you are attracting the right audiences, because people are very interested in what you have. The content's really interesting. And I would suggest if you do another of these events, for any of our listeners, get your ticket and go in there. It's very, very educational. I will definitely be.
Yeah, so we are doing a next one, actually.
Have you? I've not seen the event yet.
No, it's not. It's not out yet. It's about AI marketing. So we're talking about marketing and AI, marketing tools, about all these weird and wonderful things that are happening in the AI world and affecting marketing teams and also companies and processes and systems. And
it's surprising how many people do not yet use AI and when I say people, I mean like these are people that own businesses. So I've like I was with a client last time, and he was looking to hire somebody, and I was like, he was like, can you help me with the job role? And I was in front of him. I was like, no worries. What was the name of the role? And I ChatGPT this job description, and ChatGPT gives you the job description format, which is great, and then you kind of edit it out. So that's where the tool comes in, right? So I didn't have to think about how to structure the job description. I then was able to kind of ask, me and my client together, we worked and built the job role in detail, but the structure was there and prepared, right? So it's super easy to use, but a lot of people don't. And he was kind of set aback for a second. I was like, how did you get that quickly? I was like,
that's right.
And I wish I just said, I'm just that good.
You're
I had one ready.
Yes, and just that fast.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the reason why we picked this topic, because we feel that people are not talking about it enough locally, and the people who are not going in enough depth. And maybe, I think we really need to be having this conversation, because it's actually dangerous not to, because it's already gone quite far. And it's only going to accelerate. And if you don't jump on the bandwagon now, if you don't get acquainted with it now, if you don't start keeping up with it now, there's going to be some very big changes coming up.
Yeah.
So I think companies will be left behind, because, for instance, we've been talking about content. The amount of content you can produce is going to multiply. It's going to keep multiplying.
With
Obviously,
Sora now as well. With Sora, the video text.
Yes,
it's insane, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's one of those things, and this is one of the things, that's very important. Knowing the tools, knowing which tools are right for you. These are all things we will talk about at the event. And it's important that also the processes. How are you making things faster? Because your competition is either already doing it, or they're in the process of building this. So you're going to be left behind, because, like we said, frequency and quality and being able to, in digital marketing, rise above the noise. The noise is about to get louder with AI. The noise is getting louder with AI. And unless you can keep up with the speed that everyone is going to, because that's what it's coming to, we're going to be able to create the same quality at a higher speed.
That's true.
And we're going to create more volume at the same quality at a higher speed. So if you're not using that, you're going to be left behind. Because if one company, used to produce 4 articles a week, and now they can make 24 articles a week, because they've sorted out their processes and their tools, and they're using the same team, if not less, usually. But you're still struggling to do your 2 articles a week, then you're going to be left in the dust.
For sure.
And it's the same thing with whatever you're producing. Obviously, social is a bit of a different creature, because social media, the algorithm changes. So maybe you cannot post 10 times a day these days, because you'll be a spammer. There was a time when it used to work.
I think it still works on TikTok. I think TikTok, if you post twice or 3 times a day, the algorithm really
That's
helps.
Right. There's different algorithms.
Different platforms
but sort of when it comes to especially SEO and producing content that is going to spread organically, I think it really makes a difference, especially sort of for platforms when we're looking at organically reaching people through, say, video on YouTube, or through blogs and articles on SEO, or being found sort of your own website. If you're producing less than your competition, that's going to be...
You're dead in the water, right?
Yes.
It's as simple as even customer service with ticketing, right? So a lot of these help desk stuff, like telephony-based softwares.
The CRM systems.
Yeah, CRM systems, but I'm talking specifically about the ticketing aspect of CRM, where you have automatic replies or AI-assisted tone matching.
Yes.
Like AI-assisted tone matching is so underrated. Like imagine, you don't need somebody to go behind your new people and check if the tone is right. Because as a manager in a customer service environment, what are you checking? You're checking to make sure that information delivered is accurate, the tone is correct, there are no spelling mistakes. Fine Grammarly does that. And speed of prompt, right? Speed of answer. the tone. You don't need to check that anymore. Like you can just ask an AI to fix the wording in the tone you want it to be. So it could be casual, it could be professional, it could be light, it could be assertive. If you're like an account closure email, for example, or stuff like that. So absolutely 100% agree. You're either going to use it or you're dead in the water. And it's really hard to convey that message sometimes. Or a lot of potential clients say, but why do I need this now? Like, why do I need to implement an HR handbook? Why do I need to implement AI? Why do I need to have a website and all that? And I'm like, because if you don't, your competitor is going to have one and you're going to struggle.
Yes, you're going to lose your market share to people who are doing these things ultimately. And it's like you said, it's everything is connected. You know, it's like your handbook has got the essence of your business in it, and that has to permeate throughout the way your CRM system is ultimately being used and functioning. And of course, AI can be a part of that, but ultimately, it's also a matter of helping the human behind the process. So, for instance, you know, we see a lot of these bots on websites, and sometimes they're completely useless and they drive you crazy. But when they're programmed in the right way, they can really save you a lot of the one-touch requests that you get, because maybe 30-40% of the people who are actually opening a ticket and sending emails and taking time from your support team would get their question answered very simply by having a bot on your site. And then, of course, you don't want to have a dead end in your bot. This is what drives me crazy. You want to make it easy for them to speak to a person if they need to. You don't want to have, you know, these sort of dead ends, because then people get frustrated and it has the opposite effect.
But is that the case right now? Like most big companies, to get in touch with them is a nightmare. They push you to go through the AI bot and their ticketing system and all that. And I just want to speak to somebody. And
it's true.
One thing I've always taught to everyone in the customer service world is customers don't call you up to ask how your day is going.
No.
And they don't call up often. Like, how many times have you called your bank in your life? You can count it on the palm of your hand, right?
Yes.
You only call up your bank when you need something urgently,
course.
or if it's a problem, especially these days, because most of the stuff you can do in the app. In Malta, it's not very far away to go into a branch, so if you call up, it's usually an emergency. Which means that when you call, and I'm just talking about banks because I come from the banking background, but I think it's for everywhere, like an internet company, you're only calling because you're not calling to check in.
No, nobody.
You're like, how guys, how's it going? How's your day?
Exactly. No, you're always getting in touch because there is a problem.
Exactly.
And that problem to the user is always going to be urgent.
Yeah.
This is where maybe a bot makes sense if it's a simple question that you can answer. Like, I don't know, if there's going to be maintenance, they want to know when, because maybe they work from home. Simple things like that are very easy to do, but then you do need to pass them on to a human. And again, I have actually used a website. I forget which one it was. That was in the US. And I did not ask to speak to human. So I did just sort of go through the motions, but I did ask for a callback. And I got a callback from an AI, which was really interesting.
Like voice AI?
Yes.
It's crazy.
So I actually got a call, and it was obviously an AI voice. It was sort of natural enough not to creep me out, but I could tell it was an AI voice. And it basically gave me the information I asked for. And it was something about an event. And this was an event. I was thinking of going to this conference, and it just called and gave me the information I wanted. And I was like, quite blown away, I must admit, because I could tell that there was no human involved in the process.
Mm.
So that's an interesting one. But what's interesting about these bots is that they can actually be connected to your database. If you have a knowledge base, if you have questions, you can so easily release your team from those 30, 20, maybe more % who need a very quick question, so that they can then really give more time to the issues that are really important.
I like the word release.
To the clients that have a more complex problem.
Mm-hmm. No, I like the word release, because you are essentially moving resource from one point and then use it on something which is more
yes, you're ultimately improving the quality of your customer service.
But a lot of SMEs, I feel, a lot of businesses, not just SMEs, but let's say SMEs, right? Because usually they're quite insular in terms of how they operate.
Mm-hmm.
They do tend to look at the short term impact of that rather than the long term. Like, no, I have to put an AI bot. Like, what if it doesn't work? And what if I need to feed it information? It's going to take time. And then if I move them to something else, these people won't come back, and all that. But I agree with you. I think it's super important to use technology that's coming up, adapt to it, use it to your advantage. Use it to your advantage for your own business. It'll cost you a little bit, yes, to set it up. But if your business can afford it at that stage, it's just going to do you benefits, and it's just going to give you benefits, and it's going to be super beneficial in the longer it's in place. Well, by the time you probably have to replace it in 5 years because something new will come up most likely. But glad you mentioned that and used the word release as well, because you are releasing resource and putting it into something that can give you even more benefit.
Yes, and the more time you release, the more you can focus on actually pushing the quality up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So no matter what sector you're talking in your company, it could be marketing, it could be CRM, it can be sales, it can be customer support. Wherever you're releasing time, you can invest that time into improving the quality.
For sure.
That's
makes it makes a lot of sense, and the way you articulate it is just it's impossible not to pay attention to that, right? To just let it go. No, it's fine. AI is just a phase. It's not. It's just going to be...
No, AI is here to stay. It's
Absolutely.
a part of everything.
It is.
And it can be exciting if we choose to look at it that way. And I know that a lot of people are concerned about, maybe losing their jobs. And what I say to people who say that is then get smart with it,
There's this,
learn it.
Gary Vee said, you won't lose your job to AI, you lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI.
Exactly. So get on with it, basically.
Get a course, go online. Everything's like, you can learn so much for free. You don't really need to get a course.
Yes, exactly. Just ask ChatGPT.
Ask ChatGPT. Go on Udemy and buy a €12, €20 course, and you'll be set. You're good. You mentioned you like art films before we started, right? So I've got a little bit of a very fun zone here. So Lily, I'm gonna pass it to you. Have a question, or should I ask?
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned like you like art films or multiple different types of films, right? Like if there was one film that you would want to say that to the world, watch this. It's a small film. It's not known. You should really see it.
Well, it's not a small film, but it's not a big one in terms of how many people have seen it either. It is my favorite film, and it's called La Voce della Luna, which is The Voice of the Moon, and it's a Fellini movie, Federico Fellini, and it's actually the film that discovered Paolo Villaggio and also quite a few other famous Italian people. And it's basically about the fine line between magic and madness. And it's a fantastic film. I've watched it many times.
I love the graphic. Graphic. This is The Voice of the Moon. It's in English, yeah. The Italian one's very Italian.
Yes, and it's actually based on a book, loosely based on a book, which is called Il Poema dei Lunatici by Ermanno Cavazzoni. And the book is, if it ever was possible, actually probably better than the book. It's just... the book is actually better than the film.
Okay. That's got Roberto Benigni in it as well.
Yes, Roberto Benigni. That's one of the films that discovered him. He's quite an interesting one. And yes, no, it's a very special film. I just love it. It's one of those films I never get tired of watching. Unfortunately, you can only really get the full gist of it if you speak Italian, I think, because of the nuances of the language, but it is definitely available.
Roberto Benigni, I always imagine Roberto Benigni like the Mr. Bean of Italy, because he can say so much without saying anything. Like there are certain not this. I've not seen this movie, but I've seen a lot of his scenes where he doesn't really talk, but he says a lot. Right? He's very
expressive.
Yes,
that's
very
right.
much.
That's right.
But then again, most Italian actors are quite expressive because a lot of hand gestures.
Yes, and I think also the language itself. In fact, I think one of the biggest assets I have as a copywriter is knowing Italian. Because whenever I'm stuck when you're trying to tell a story and you're stuck for something visual, all you need to do is think of the Italian word, because the Italian word or an expression has so many nuances, has so many different meanings sometimes, that it's just so easy to just pick one and translate it and make your copy just unusual.
Very interesting. It does help knowing Italian, because I do enjoy writing. I've always enjoyed writing, and that's why I worked in comms for a while as well. So it was probably one of my favorite things that I've done in my career, was building communications and writing articles, putting newsletters together, and sitting there thinking like, how am I going to word this? How am I going to make this thing interesting? But it does help. It does give that extra color when you're trying to write, because it's Italian's very romantic and it's very expressive. Not that English isn't, but I feel English is very boxy because we speak it a lot.
It's a little different. It's a bit also like Maltese. Like Maltese, you can think of any word, and when you have to explain it to someone else, to someone who doesn't speak Maltese, to say what it means,
contextualizing.
How many words do you use to explain a Maltese word? Because it can be used in so many different ways, and it has so many different nuances, and it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Less poetic, generally.
Yes. Generally.
Less poetic.
That's
than
the
Italian.
Semitic side of the language.
But it's kind of got the same thing.
No, it's true. It's very. If we start talking about languages, we're going to be here a long time. Because I took up German last summer, not this summer, and I started learning it. I don't know why I stopped. I think I just got busy and it just fizzled away. I did 3 months of German, and German does have a bit of. Obviously, it's not as romantic as Italian.
No,
but it does have there's one word, like the way you say something can mean very different depending on the context and the affix you would use, or I don't know what they're called. I might be stupid. So if any of the German viewers disagree, please in the comments do so.
German, I think I know 1 or 2 words in there, and
but there are certain
I think
words,
they're
I was
rude,
like, so that's where the Maltese word comes from. Because I was like, like we have certain words in Maltese that are neither Arabic nor like romantic. They don't make sense. And then you'll see like the German word for, and I really don't remember. That's how bad I am. But I was like, that's where it comes from. That's where the word.
So it sounds like it.
It literally means the same thing, but it will be it will be like obviously different, but it sounds the same. It's pronounced similarly. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. So we do have a bit of.
So you'd be amazed how much Maltese has taken from other languages, and sometimes, like we realize as well. I studied French, A level, so I had to read a lot of old French books. And it's what's interesting is that when you read old French, you can find expressions that we use in Maltese, literally translated. Yeah. And of course, the French were here for 2 years, but they were quite tough about
language,
enforcing language.
Lily used to study French as well, remember?
So it makes absolute sense. I mean, we still say bonjour, which is bonjour ultimately. So.
Of course, we're still very heavily influenced by some French words.
They were.
I made a pass at Larry for French because he used to hate French at school, and he had this. It was at that point. It was part of his personality. I don't think he hated French. I think he just hated the lesson in general.
I hated
the teacher.
Probably. And he used to leave the French class and come and sit on the Italian class with us. And once he hid in the lockers, when the teacher came looking for him, that was good. This was. Because me and Lily were in secondary school in the early 2000s, right?
Oh, wow, okay.
2001, 2002. Good times. Very good times. once he hid in the actual locker, and she was looking for him, and nobody ratted on him. We were like, no, we're gonna protect him. Like, no one say anything. And she came in and was like, is someone here? I was like, no. And she just went down and looking for him in the ground. I think he ran back in the classroom. Good times, man. Just unlock that memory for me. Do you have any other questions, Lily, from Lily's Fun Zone?
I mean, there was one. I don't know if you want to consider. I mean, was there like one campaign, like marketing campaign, or like a marketing item that made you like smile, or it was just fun?
Gosh, that's a question.
He does.
The ones
does
that
have
I've
good
run
questions.
or something that I've seen. I probably the most memorable campaign I have ever seen, and I still remember. There was a Coca-Cola campaign with. They had created this whole world. I think it was about longer than 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They created this whole world, and they had these like, they looked like soft lips, but they were like creatures, and they were like kissing the bottle. And they were also like creatures in this world. So I think that's probably the most memorable thing I've seen in marketing. Again, Coca-Cola is one of those brands who can afford to do these things. It's not exactly a marketing campaign either. It's more sort of loyalty, brand awareness, brand establishment kind of things. They were not actively selling. There was nothing unusual about the bottle. It's not like when they had, the personalized bottles.
With the names.
That's right. That is sort of more maybe actively selling. So it obviously contributes to the sales, contributes to the brand, and so on. Obviously, because you're talking about a drink here. So how many times can you show someone drinking a bottle of Coke?
Yeah, that's the difference, kind of.
That's right.
What you want to aim for achieving marketing, right?
That's right.
This is one of Coca-Cola. Everyone knows Coca-Cola. They just want to kind of
exactly. But that's because Coca-Cola very effectively do memorable, because they are at a stage in their brand where they know that they can invest a lot of money and do something memorable. Or like, I remember, you probably don't remember it because you were in secondary school in the early 2000s, but in the 90s there was this advert which was obviously targeted at women, of these people in an office, and this Coca-Cola delivery guy would come in, and he had obviously a perfect six-pack, and he wouldn't be wearing a t-shirt, and of course everyone was talking about it,
I don't remember that.
And there were, I think, 2 or 3 different ones, because obviously not everybody likes the same kind of guy, so they made sure to keep everybody happy. But yes, see, that's what they're good at. They're good at the memorable.
You mentioned brand awareness. So they got to the stage where the brand is, that's what they need to do. They need to just spread brand awareness and kind of just reinforce the message that they're doing or who they are and all that, because everyone knows what Coca-Cola is pretty much.
Yes,
I
think
right?
It's also a matter of, with drinks, that's like they call them the Coke wars. It's more a strategic. I think they're at the stage in the businesses where it's strategic, going into countries with agreements and.
Yes, of course, because it's Pepsi.
So it's sort of very, very high level business. So in reality, they can really have fun with their marketing, and they go off, obviously, because it's a drink, and ultimately, it's about the emotional connection.
That's it.
So that's why they go with these campaigns that are memorable, that are different. There's always a strong emotion.
Yeah.
So it's like those women looking at the guy, that's the strong emotion. There's those little kisses kissing the bottle, and this really sort of happy, sweet little world. So they're creating these emotions so that you're connecting the emotion to the product. Because when you're having a great day and you're doing your shopping at the supermarket, and you see that little curvy bottle, you think,
why not get a sugar injection?
I'm going to have a bit of that, because you've connected that to joy and sweetness and something positive,
Yeah, I do enjoy a Coca-Cola once in a blue moon, but I know how bad it is, and then I just usually midway through I'm like, oh going to suffer because I had this. No. But I did want to ask about branding, right? So I've been hearing a lot about this recently. Since your talk on digital marketing, I went down this rabbit hole. And especially for small businesses, but even larger ones, the take is people don't care about brands anymore. They care about the people. The best thing you can do for your business is to get your employees to write on social media about your business, because that's what people care about nowadays.
Yes, and that's very true. And that is why employer branding has become more commonly spoken about. Mm-hmm. It's slowly becoming more, like before it was something like you almost hid, which was like a hidden strategy. But I think it's very important to have employer branding. I'm not so sure. I mean, employees writing about the brand is a little bit controversial because obviously you cannot really force your employees to be on social media. You can have an employer branding strategy. You can have maybe the more creative people in the business. You can organize, maybe get HR together with marketing and organize events and have, opportunities to show the values of the company. The biggest problem with employer branding, though, is that when you don't have clear values and a clear strategy in a company, it becomes really difficult to do any of that, especially when you're trying to establish trust, especially if you're into B2B or in services. It's important to have a strong head of the business, but then to also have the values where everybody in the company knows the values of the company. Everybody in the company lives the values of the company, so that they become kind of visible, and they become visible in your environment. They become visible in the things HR is organizing. So simple things like, if you say that CSR is very important for you, then you're obviously organizing a lot of CSR events, which is automatically going to show up in your social media and in your marketing. If you say that, for instance, your employees' well-being is very important to you, then that's something that is going to show up, because if it's something that you're actively doing, you don't have to force it. One thing that's what we do at 9H is something called 9H Communities, which is about, obviously, as you probably know, we're a hybrid company. A truly hybrid company, in the sense that we have fully remote employees. Obviously, we're in 3 different countries, so there's fully remote employees. There's people who work flexibly remotely from home. It's sort of very fluid. So getting people together and getting people to communicate well is very important for the company. And what the communities does is actually where basically the employees can organize working holidays, where, for instance, we had a group in Tuscany in February.
Wow, okay.
The creative team, it will be on our blog in the next couple of days. And, they spent a whole week, and, they're getting to know each other, and they're also working together. And it's just one of those things that is so natural, because the company is its people. And it's about building relationships with clients. It's about building relationships with each other. And it's about the strength of the creativity that we can foster by working together. And it's just a natural progression of things, kind of thing. It's like when you have these things in place, it becomes natural for your for your corporate marketing to flow into the public sphere. Because if things are happening internally that are reflecting your values, then it's going to... So what you need to ask yourself really is, if this is not happening in my business, why is it not happening? Because what that probably means is that you may have values on paper, but maybe you're not living them. Or maybe the business owners know, but they're not managing to spread the knowledge of... Yeah, they're not managing to spread it across the company. Maybe it's just happening, at managerial level, but it's just a document. It's not being lived.
I wrote a post a couple of weeks back about this, about the importance of so yes, what the company values are as a business owner, and common error or a common way of doing it is usually limiting it to your circle of influence, which is usually the senior leadership team, right? If you're in a big, let's say you're in a medium-sized or a big company. But the importance of constantly communicating that message when you are like in the elevator with somebody, or if you meet an employee down the stairs and all that, and you're constantly talking the talk, walking the walk, and as you said, actioning what you're saying, really helps deliver the value. But again, you need to also have a clear value charter, like understand what the values are, which is probably step one.
Yes, and in fact, this is quite interesting because at 9H we do something called, like, we have these branding events that we organize with clients. So let's say if you're going to go through a branding exercise, you can actually book our strategists and spend a day with them, and very often, these are the things that you need to talk about. It's not just about your company brand, but what are the emotions? And as my colleague Rowan would probably say a lot better than me, it's about finding out the essence of the business, and then how does this sort of come through in the brand. But it's not a matter of brand properties and sort of company values. They are kind of one and the same thing. If your brand does not convey your company values, then your brand needs redoing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the first step. And obviously your people are part of your brand, the way you do things, your structure, everything. In fact, we talk a lot about connecting, obviously, because we also do the tech side. We talk a lot about connecting everything from your marketing to your sales, to your CRM, to your customer service. As you know, we also resell HubSpot, which is a platform that sort of allows us to see the data across the board. And if you don't, this is like another layer of tech and data, but the layer on top of that is the values. It's like, it's going to be seen in your marketing. It's going to be seen in the way you interact with your clients. It's going to be seen in the way you follow up your leads in your CRM. It's so important. You really have to know what you stand for. And I find that is actually missing in a lot of companies.
It's non-existent in some of them.
Yes, it doesn't mean that they didn't have that to begin with, but sometimes you either have the founders that maybe sold the company on, and then it kind of loses its spirit a little bit. Or sometimes you have maybe second generation family businesses that have been passed on, where, they still have the values on paper, but they have kind of been forgotten, or maybe they just need refreshing because they belong to a different generation.
You just need to reignite the conversation around it, I think.
That's right. And ignite is the right word, because when you start the conversation, you reignite the passion in the people who are at the helm of the business. And once you can sort of capture that passion and put it on paper and find out what values are actually feeding that passion, and then if you can infuse that into your brand and into your company, then you're obviously going to be able to, again, cut through the noise in this oversaturated digital world so much more easily, because you actually have something to say. You actually have something to stand for, and you actually have passion in your eyes when you say it, and that makes all the difference, because you cannot fake it. People are
organic.
People are drawn to things that are real, because even if we don't really, sometimes we don't really know, we instinctively do know. It's like, even if people are not aware, they're not asking themselves, is this real? Is this fake? Is this maybe over marketed or whatever? Instinctively, they feel it.
Is it like 80% of communication is non-verbal or something like that? Or, I'm not sure exactly the data. We'll fix it in post in terms of what the percentage of that is. But a lot of the way we communicate as humans is intuitively, as you said, and I think genuinity and stuff being organic and being real and being actual. This is what we're actually doing, because you can tell the difference between a company that says what they do and the company that says what they do but actually do it, right? Because your employees speak highly of them, their clients speak highly of them, and you can just look at the negative reviews or the positive ones, and you'll see the difference. So
yes, that's right. And it's just this feeling it gives you. I think you can also tell because obviously there are there are businesses that start off maybe very passionate, and then sort of the passion dies later as they become more corporate, and you can feel it, and the audience feels it. And also I think you can also see it in the way they treat their clients and the processes. We know this, we've been through it before, and that's why sometimes people tend to maybe go more towards the smaller local businesses as opposed to working with large corporates.
Yeah, that's true.
Like that is why HSBC would call themselves, do campaigns about small local businesses to show that, they're not just this large international company. They also have this local knowledge, so it's because people are drawn to this connection, this feeling.
And I can attest that they do work very, very hard internally to make sure that they put their values in front. Like they walk the walk as well. Like I can attest to that.
That's right. And I think that's the secret, really. It's okay, have your values, but obviously
invest
all the branding
and
the marketing that goes with it, but you have to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Get your leaders behind the words and all that. So
that's right.
Super interesting. I think it's a really good tone to conclude the conversation. But before we conclude the episode, we always ask our esteemed guests to give us a one-liner or their kind of the parting shot from the episode, which is if you had to deliver one message to the whole world, what would that message be? So over to you.
Well, I would say one thing. I would say, I really think that a lot of people I come across really need to embrace change, because the only thing that we know is a true constant is actually change. And I think a lot of people need to learn to stop resisting change and embrace it and really enjoy it like a roller coaster ride, because that's ultimately what it is. And change never stops. If anything, I think we know that it accelerates. When you think about it, my grandfather was born to a world that didn't have the light bulb.
Yeah.
When he passed away, he lived in a house that had electricity, television, internet, telephone.
That's true.
There's
a saying that says the pace of change has never been this fast, yet will never be this slow. We're trying to look it up.
Exactly, so you better brace yourself. The roller coaster is going to get faster.
Brace for change. Brace for change, guys.
Yes.
Great message, very eye-opening. But Stephanie, thank you. It's been a really, really nice conversation. You can tell you're a natural, because, or you can tell you do podcasts at least, because the conversation was very flowing, very natural. Really enjoyed it. Myself, listening to obviously all the knowledge you have to share. Keep sharing that knowledge. Like I'm really looking forward to more keynote speeches by you. So I will be attending any other events you put on there, 100%.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming. Thanks for giving us your time. It's always a pleasure having super smart people like yourself on this show, because it helps us. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you again in another episode.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.